Welcome to part 2 of creating a sermon series logo in Canva. So in this video, I'm going to mainly talk about how do you create one from scratch using the elements feature that's over here on the left. Before in part 1, we talked about design, where Canva has created pre-made designs that you can use and then manipulate from there as they give you some inspiration. But for this one, we're going to start all the way from scratch and only use the elements that you can search for. These involve many different types of things, and we're going to use the text, and we're also going to upload something or just drag and drop into this sermon series image. So that's what this will be here. We're going to be talking about those three things. So if we start from scratch, again, you're here, you haven't made anything yet, you may not have anything in recent designs, that's fine. Just to reiterate, I'm using the dark mode, that's why mine has a black background. Yours might have a white, that's totally fine. You can change that in your settings right here in accessibility. I'm going to go ahead and just go back. So again, this may look overwhelming. I'm going to do a custom design, although you could come over here to social media. It's the same size. You would be using a YouTube thumbnail, 1280 by 720, and this will work for most of the time. Will work for your sermon series featured image on your website and your YouTube upload. But again, you may have to double check the sizing. So I always like to do a custom size because the sizing can be different for different things. In another part, we will learn how to resize for social media posts, because those can be very different. As you can see, an Instagram post is 1080 by 1350. A YouTube thumbnail is 1280 by 720. Very different. So how do we work with that? We'll discuss that in another part. So for now, if you're here, again, you can flip through all these. You're not making a decision until you finally click on one, obviously. I'm going to do custom size, so I could do that from here as well, and it would highlight custom size. Okay, so I like to just type it out. I'm using the pixel units here, 1280 by 720. Create new design. It's going to be blank. Again, the design pops up first typically, and they're going to give you a couple of template options. I don't want to use the design. We actually want to start with elements. So in elements, I've got some things that I've already looked up in the past. So you're going to see recently used here. I was looking at flowers. I use this rectangle or square shape. So it's important to let you know what is in the elements. There are so many things in elements. Typically, you're going to be looking at pictures or graphics or photos to kind of be some part of the background. But you're also going to be dealing with shapes. You're going to be dealing with what's called a frame, although you can have audio, charts, tables, frames. What we used last time, we saw a circle frame. We're not going to be using that this time, but frames are pretty unique in how they can take on it gives you a shape, and then you insert an image, and it kind of takes on the shape. The image will take on the shape instead of having its normal size. We dealt with that in part 1, so I would say refer to part 1 for a little bit of an introduction of frames. But as you get into frames, you'll kind of learn as you go. There's a lot of different shapes with frames. There's also, I guess, grids. It also has frames, mock-ups. This is a frame for a phone. So you're going to be able to find a lot of stuff. I just like to start with a search. And even when you click in here to start searching, you're going to see categories pop up as well. So if you're completely lost, you could go by categories and looking for a photo. I'm just going to go by what I typically do, and we're going to try to recreate something like this. This was for a church that is in Denver, Colorado, and so I actually did search Denver mountains. Yeah, I actually have it here in recent Denver mountains, and just see what pops up. Now, what originally pops up, I've got graphics, I've got photos, I've got videos, I've got audio. So I actually just want to search for photos. There's a couple ways you could just single out photos. You can click on or tap or click on photos here. You can say see all at the edges here. You say graphics, see all, photos, see all. You could do that as well. My normal routine is just to click on this. So photos. So showing results for Denver mountains. Search instead for, I don't know what would be the difference there. Sometimes it might have auto-corrected if you maybe misspelled something. I do see the photo I use, but I just want to let you know what you're going to get here is a lot of different artists have uploaded things. And again, using the Pro version, you're going to see a lot of other options with Pro photos. You are going to still see some options with the free versions as well. The ones that don't have the crown are free. You can use those as well. And we're seeing a lot of different options. I'm seeing a skyline with maybe some mountains in the background. Some other parts of, I'm not super aware of Denver, so this must be some other building in Denver. And then I'm starting to get cars in front of mountains. It gets a little crazy, but because I put mountains, Denver, I'm sure this person has tagged their photo with that same thing. This was shot in Denver. There's mountains. There's also a sports car. It's not really what I'm looking for. But as you'll see, you're going to go through these and maybe you need to just look up mountains. Maybe, maybe Denver is a little bit too on the nose and you just want mountains. There's a deer of some kind or something of that nature. Then it starts to get into some animals. Okay, I actually really liked this photo. And sometimes what I see is the things at the top are probably more what you're going to be looking for based on the search. And it starts to trickle down from there. Maybe you're just going to see Denver instead of Denver mountains. But they do a pretty good job of tagging things so that whatever you search for, you're going to be able to find pretty well. It can get tricky, but just like Google search, it kind of works the same way. So I really like this photo. I like that it's in the fall. I like that you see water and mountains. And what I was going for with this Psalms sermon series photo is I want something peaceful and something that would reflect a lot of the Psalms that talk about, being at peace near nature and things like that. That just kind of reminded me of that, but you're welcome to have your own ideas of what could you put in the background of a sermon series logo. So I'm pinching out here. Again, you can slide this if you're, if it's too far in and you need to zoom out, you can use this feature right here. This is pretty neat. So I want this to cover the whole area, and just to remind you, you would click and drag and you'll kind of feel this point where Canva will automatically lock things into place. That usually works in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't, but for this, it is going to work in our favor. So I like to just lock it in at the corner and then drag the other corner so that it fits in and locks in on the side. Now it's locked in. It's not necessarily centered, and that's okay, because I want a little bit of the top of the mountain. If I centered this photo, I'm going to lose a little bit of the top of the mountain. I don't want that. I actually want more. I want you to be able to see that space above the mountain. So that seems good to me. Now, one other thing is that we are going to work with transparency. And I already know that I am going to want this photo to be a bit transparent. So it matters what's in the background if you're dealing with transparency. So before I mess with adding anything else on top, I already know this, but I did it after the fact. But we're going to look at what's in the background. What color is behind this, because I'm going to use some transparency and it's going to kind of take on that color that's behind it. I'm going to go to position again. From part 1, we learned that the layers of this are within the position. And how I got there is I just clicked on the element that is the only element that's available for me to click on, just the photo, position, and you get arrange and layers. There's not really anything I can do with arrange because it's just that it's not necessarily the background, but I can't really bring the background in front of the photo. So I'm going to go to layers, and now I see the background. The background is white. Now I can't really see it because this is in front, but I can tell the background's white. And as soon as I clicked on background, this area just changed, as you can see here. This area just changed to reflect what's selected. So the background color is white, and I don't want that. I actually want more of a darker color. So you see here the document color right now, we've only got one, it's white. I could go to photo colors. Again, I have all of these saved because this is a brand kit and I've uploaded that, but you'll see photo colors pop up. These are colors, not all the colors, but a lot of the colors that are here on this photo. I really like this green, this olive green. I'm going to keep that for now. So that's actually what the background color is, although we can't see it. But if we move this, we'll see that's the background color. I'm going to keep that for now. I think even on this one, the background color is a little bit different, but for the sake of ease, that is a really nice way to choose that color. We could also do, I'm going to go back to position, layers, the background color. You could also find your own color out of this photo. We looked at this in part 1. So you could also do this, add a new color, pick a color, and literally you could pick the outside area or any of these that you see. But I want to see if I can try this pixel for a really dark green. Now that is very different than that. So might toggle back and forth. Oh, well, it went away. Okay. I can do it again if that was the case, but I'm going to leave this olive color for now, and we'll deal with transparency later. So there's a couple more elements that are here. There's the logo for the church, there is this circle, and then there's a text box. So it's not that complex. It's just about, I guess, maybe 5 layers, and they're all not very complicated. Well, the next thing I need to do is get this circle, and you'll notice how you can kind of see through the circle into the photo. That's because there's some transparency on the circle. There's also transparency on this, although you can barely tell. So I need to go find that circle. Well, we're still in elements. Just in case you're not, click on elements. It's looking up Denver Mountains. I'm going to clear that. And I see shapes, but even if I just type circle, one of the quickest things you're going to find is that, okay, you're looking for a shape. So it's going to give that to you here. So circle, I don't know why it made it blue. I definitely want to change that. And you are able to type within the shape, although I will give you the tip that I find it to be best to just use shapes as shapes and not type in them. You're going to have more flexibility if you add a text box over the shape rather than type in text within the shape. So ignore that. I'm actually going to change the color to just plain white. I have that in a brand kit, but also you could come here, add new color. If this is for some reason way over here, just drag this all the way to the corner. White, the hex code for white is all Fs, 6 Fs. And so that's what I want that to be. It's not the size I want it to be, so I'm going to have to reshape this a bit and make it bigger. So I'm going to come at the corners here and get my shape about the way that I want it, and then I'm also going to move my shape to be in the center. Okay, but you'll notice I think this shape is a little smaller, so I might adjust that, but you can see through it. So let's talk about that. I don't want this to totally block that photo. I want you to see through it. So in part 1, we talked about this transparency option. I've got this selected. It's important to know what's selected when you're dealing with transparency. I've got this element selected. Now I'm going to lower the transparency a bit. You're going to start to see that photo pop through. That looks about right, 72. I'm just going to refer back to this. I'm not sure what I did with this layer. 65, okay. For now, I'll just leave this and just see what happens. Maybe I want it to be at that. I see a little bit of the top of the mountain. I don't really like that. I'm going to adjust that a little bit so that this element, is covered. It just wasn't quite right. That's just kind of your own preference there. So now I want a text box over this that says Psalms. That's going to be the main thing. I want people to see the title of the sermon series more than anything else. I want their eye to be drawn to the title. So we're going to go, instead of elements, now we're going to be dealing with text. So with text, they do give you some combinations of fonts, and you can get inspired with this and use those, obviously. But I'm just going to do kind of a simple thing and add a text box. You may not see this either. This is because we have a brand kit here, and the brand kit uses Montserrat font. So if you see all this, it looks overwhelming. Don't worry about it. Just add a new text box. It may have an auto-filled one. Maybe yours is not Montserrat. But whatever it is, you've got a little 13 font size text box. We want that to be much bigger, obviously. That's way too small. And I want it to be a different font. So whatever your workflow looks like, I'm going to select that. I'm also going to highlight it just to make sure I can adjust the size. Whatever your workflow is, if you want to change the typeface first or the size, I like to change the size. That gives me a relative idea of if the font's really going to work. I use typeface and font interchangeably because the technical term is typeface, but Canva goes by font. That's the more common lingo, I guess, is font. I'm going to guess that this is going to be at least 100, yeah, if not more. So what I want to do next is just start looking at different fonts. I'm going to center this a little bit more, and let's just take a look at what fonts we have. So I'm going to make sure that's selected, click on where I see the font name, and I've got a lot of different options. Again, if you have the Pro version, you can upload fonts, but they give you a lot of fonts to work with. They also, at the very top, you'll see you've got these different options like handwriting, corporate, display, paragraph, sans serif, serif, modern, bold, all of these here, elegant. You can even see, okay, text styles, it's only because of the brand kit. So I'm dealing with a heading, subheading, or body. I'm not going to worry about that. But I do want some sort of a handwriting font. So you can just kind of try them out. As you click, you'll see it change. And if one really catches your eye, go for it. I have to recall, oh, I do remember which one I have. So on the other one, I might actually have to type it. But this is a pretty neat tool that you can just see what works. So this is, that's very close to what I have, but I think what I have is called Jonathan. I don't know why, that's an interesting name, but there it is, Jonathan. It's very small still. This one, for some reason, is a very different combination of sizing, you know, compared to Montserrat. This is a lot smaller. 100 in Jonathan is smaller than 100 in Montserrat. So I am going to guess maybe it's more than 200. I'm going to cheat a little bit just to get this right so I don't belabor this. So 278, okay. Really close to 300. 278. I'm going to center this. Actually, now I know that my circle on the other one is a bit smaller because of the way that this is filling. And I am going to make that circle smaller. I do kind of like that it was a bit smaller, the other one. I'm going to center everything. I still can't quite figure out what I did that other time. This might be a little bit different. Each time you make one, it's kind of a new experience. So I'm actually going to make this a bit bigger and just maybe call it 300. It's going to be about 315. I like the idea of having these slightly out of the circle. Gotta center that just barely. There we go. So this is the basic form, but this is black, and you'll see here this is slightly gray. So I'm actually going to change the color of this, and I'll show you how I did that. It's fine with black, I think, but I just really wanted something a little softer. So I'm going to highlight the text. come over to the text color, because this changed with the text being selected and highlighted. I'm going to come to add new color. Black is all zeros, white is all Fs. But then as I move up the scale, I'm going to keep it more towards the left and just kind of scale it up. It's a little bit off of the black. It's slightly gray. I think that looks a little softer and nicer. There's something else about the background. I want to try to just ever so slightly change the transparency. You'll see here, this is slightly transparent, 89. You can barely tell. But there's something about it. I want it to, it's a bit, I'm not sure what the word is, but it just seems too crisp to me. And, and I want this to be a little bit bigger too. I'm going to get real picky. I can still see the top of that mountain, and so I want this to be slightly bigger. If this happens to you, you can, this is inevitably what's going to happen. You're going to get picky. Okay, so I'm selecting the image. We're going to go to transparency. As you can see, it's going to start to take that color behind it, that olive color. So yeah, I'm going to go a little bit back like that, 81. I like that. It's kind of a soft color coming through and less harshness of everything. So my eye is just driven to the title. For this one, this is if it's for your church, you can leave it. You can even add another text box that says a sermon series by your pastor's name. That seems to be a common theme. Or you can just put your church logo on it. And this church logo here. I'm going to resize this a little bit here. I'm going to put it on the end, and in part one we talked about giving this a little bit of space, and you don't want it all the way over, and you don't want it all the way at the bottom either. You want a little bit of white space, just for eye appeal. So I really like the way this turned out. Again, you can get really picky and go maybe 317 and have a little bit of this off as well. But that's the basics of how you would create something just using elements, text, uploading another image, and adjusting as you go. So now we really like this. It's important to name it something that makes sense. Psalms, sermon, series, logo, something like that. Whatever helps you remember. So we're going to go share, download, keep it at that. You can see here just to make sure this size is 1280 by 720, JPEG or PNG. If you use JPEG and you have the Pro version, you can set the quality of the JPEG to 100%. If you don't have the Pro version, I believe you're stuck at the 80%, whatever showed before. I prefer PNG, so I'm gonna leave it at PNG and download. And then it downloads to, if you're on a Mac, your downloads folder. If you're on a PC, probably also your downloads folder, but I don't know where that is. So that is how you make something basically from scratch, using only the elements that Canva gives you.